Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Well, welcome everybody to episode 4 of Screw the Commute podcast. This is one of our special weekly business training sessions where I give you insights guaranteed to help you either start a business or run the one you have more effectively. Right now, I'm doing one training session a week and 2 entrepreneur interviews, but keep in touch with screwthecommute.com if we change that schedule. All right, make sure you subscribe when you're over there too, and please leave a review. All right, our sponsor this week is me again. The Tom Antion Internet Marketing Retreat and Joint Venture Program, where myself and my staff work with you for a year to either get you started in an internet business or to use the internet to take your existing business to the next level. I'm going to tell you more about that later, and the details will be at greatinternetmarketingtraining.com, greatinternetmarketingtraining.com, and that'll also be in the show notes at screwthecommute.com. All right, let's get into today's training. I want you to make sure you listen to episode 1 on keywords, because the things you do here with websites rely heavily on keywords. So make sure you go back and listen to episode 1 and implement them into your website. Now, I've been teaching people to get control of their own website since around 1997, when Microsoft Front Page came out, making it easy for regular people to make HTML websites. And that program went through several updates over the years, but now the gold standard is WordPress. Now, why should you bother? I'm sure you're wondering about this. Why should you bother with this when there are plenty of web designers out there? Well, let me tell you some of the benefits to your business. One is speed to market. See, when you are able to add things to your website or even create websites in a matter of days, or you can add things in a matter of minutes, you have no delays. And this is a fast-paced society. If you want to make money, you need to take opportunities when they come and quickly. I mean, when you're dealing with a web designer, in most cases, you got a couple weeks just to fix a typo. All right, that's just not acceptable in today's fast-paced environment. And I'll tell you a story about when on the radio, I get called quite frequently because I'm known as a pretty good guest because somebody canceled. So when I get called at the last minute, I can put up a web page in no time at all with their call letters on it and send people from the radio show to a specific page. Now, if you got called at the last minute and depended on a web designer, you couldn't do that in a million years. So that's just one little benefit. It's fast. Next thing is cheap. You're talking about maybe from free to about $100 for a world-class website. All right, now, this is not pie in the sky. This is the way we do it all the time. And I'm going to give you the method a little later. And if you want a membership site, which has a lot of potential for recurring revenue, we're talking maybe maximum $300. Where if you went to a regular professional firm for either one of these, you're probably talking $3,500, $5,500, maybe 10 grand for a membership site and months until they got it ready for you. So that's just not acceptable, and it's ridiculous if you really want to make money in your business. Now, another big benefit is you can try ideas that would be too risky if you had to pay full price thousands for a website. Give you an example, 2 examples, in fact. Back in 2002, I came out with a eulogy ebook. In other words, it taught people how to write eulogies. The website cost me $15, all right? And that site and that ebook has brought in $42,000 a year. It did at the time for 9 years straight. 9 years straight, $42,000 a year. But guess what? I would have never in a million years, and I wouldn't have advised you either to even try it if the website was It's $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. Much too risky. Same thing with my wedding books. I have wedding speech book, how to do a wedding speech and how to do a wedding toast. $15 for each website. They brought in $72,000 a year for 9 years straight. Again, I would have never, ever tried it if it was thousands of dollars for a website. All right, here's the basic method. You got to get a domain name, and there's some things you really need to know about that and can really mess you up if you didn't know, and many of you don't know this. When you get a domain name, you must be, and that's with a capital M-U-S-T, you must be the registrant. These are specific terms with regard to this industry. You must be the registrant and the administrative contact. Those are two terms that are very specific to domain names. You must be the registrant and the administrative contact. It's okay to have your tech person, if you have one, as the technical contact. That's perfectly acceptable. But here's the problem. You turn everything over, you put your head in the sand, oh, go ahead, get the domain name for me. Well, many web designers, and some are unscrupulous and some just don't know any better, go buy it on your behalf, and they end up being the registrant. Oh my God, this is about as bad as it gets, because if you have a falling out with that person, very common. If that person disappears off the face of the earth, even more common, or they die or something, whatever, guess who owns the website? They do, not you. And it could cost you thousands and thousands of dollars in legal fees and ICANN fees to get it back. So make sure you're the registrant. Now, if you already have a domain name and somebody bought it for you, how do you find out what's going on? Well, you do what's called a whois lookup. So whois, like WHOIS, and then I use a service at .sc. So it's whois.sc. This will be in the show notes. It'll tell you who's the registrant, who's the administrative contact, who's the actual technical contact. And it gives you all of that right there. It's all public knowledge unless you have made your site private. And in that case, you don't even know unless that person tells you. And then hopefully they're truthful with you. So you got to make sure you're the registrant, or you could be in deep doo-doo if anything happens at all. You don't own your website. All right, another thing people don't know frequently is that you can buy your domain name one place and host your site somewhere else. All right, so this is pretty common to us that are in the business, but sometimes business owners just don't know that. Now, it is a good idea to keep your domain names in one place, because if you have them all over the place and then you miss a notice from one of the companies and just kind of forget about it because you got an outlier domain at some other place, well, it might expire and it's gone. And you got to jump through hoops to get it back if you can, or it's just gone. So try to keep your domain names in one place if you can, but you should host your site in multiple locations if you have more than one website. Of course, if you have just one site, there's no worry there. But when you have multiple websites, you host it in even different parts of the country. Because if you have them all in one place, because somebody gives you a bargain and it's all in one for $15 a month, well, guess what? When, I'm not going to say if, when that hosting service gets hacked and stuff happens, you disappear off the face of the earth. All your stuff goes down. Poof, gone. All right, so it's a good idea when you have multiple sites to host them at different parts, even the country, because if a big backbone of the internet on the East Coast goes down and you have some of your sites on the West Coast, well, now you're not totally out of business. You still got stuff going. So hosting in multiple sites, and I'm going to tell you more about hosting and mistakes with hosting a little later. All right, now let's talk about WordPress. WordPress is now the gold standard, and I like to explain this like WordPress is like the engine to a car. All cars have engines that make it run. Now, it's free, so most hosting services will give you, and many will install it for you. So So this is pretty easy, but it's extremely popular. It's really the gold standard for even major big sites. So the next thing is you put a theme on it. Now, a theme is like the paint job on a car. It's what your site looks like. So when you hear the term responsive theme, that means it must look good on cell phones and tablets. Many of the older sites and older themes don't work on, I mean, they actually work, but it's people have to squinch their fingers up and down and move all around to try to see your site. That's, in fact, how you tell if your site is responsive. Get your cell phone out, pull your site up on it, and see if you have to use your fingers to expand and slide around all over the place. Then it's not responsive. But that's a pretty much must. Google came out several years ago and demanded that if you're even going to get a high ranking for anything. They're not going to ban you, but they're never going to see the light of day if your site is old like that. Now, this is mostly for consumer sites. I do have a couple business sites that it just doesn't matter. Everybody's going to be on a desktop when they're working it. But for the most part, you want to think responsive. And the theme is what things look like. Now, there's free ones available, but even with a world-class one, you shouldn't pay more than $100. I've seen some at $150 that have specialized functionality, but probably most of you listening to this would never need that. Now, another couple terms you'll hear with regard to WordPress sites are plugins and widgets. Now, what I want you to think about there is they're like accessories on a car. So we had WordPress as the engine, the theme is the paint job, and plugins and widgets are like accessories, like heated seats or heated mirrors or a DVD player so the people in the back can watch a movie. So those are plugins and widgets. And almost all of those are free. There are paid ones that do very special things. For instance, our membership plugins cost maybe a couple $100, but they're the ones that allow you to do the membership where people pay you monthly for stuff. Now, the only other thing you need to make your site look right is custom graphics. And there's a site that I've been touting for years called Fiverr. That's Fiverr.com. And it started out where it was just thousands of people all around the world telling you what they're willing to do for you for $5. All right. And I got all kinds of stuff: book covers, custom logos, graphics, headers for websites, all kinds of stuff. Headers for YouTube channel. So nowadays, a lot of them are more than $5. They might charge $5 for the basic, and then add-ons. If you want something extra, it's $10 or $15, but it's still bargain of the century. And you could do 10 logos, let's say, and throw 9 of them away and still be cheaper than going to a firm that's going to spend months and charge you $500. All right. So it's a great place. So that's what you need. You need WordPress that's installed usually by your host. You need themes. Now, the themes we recommend to all our students, it's changed over the years, but currently we use Thrive. Thrive Themes and Thrive Architect are what we use instead of the old front page to make your site easily. I mean, a mere mortal can operate these with a tiny bit of tutoring. They'll be in the show notes. Will be my affiliate link there. That's not expensive at all for this. So the next thing you need to do if you're going to be doing e-commerce and selling things and using email marketing and all that is a good shopping cart system. And I emphasize the word system because it's more than just taking one order, taking the sale. It's taking the sale and sending an autoresponder series of people as a follow-up to sell them more stuff over time automatically, to do e-courses automatically, to do affiliate marketing, which means other people promote your stuff and you pay them only if they sell something. They're your affiliates, in other words. Upselling and cross-selling and coupons and all of these things are in a good shopping cart system. Now, the only one we support, and of course I get a commission on it, absolutely, is kickstartcart.com. And Why? And I've been running my entire business for now 16 years with this. And the reason is a mere mortal can operate it. I mean, I've had people come to me with these some of these big marketing companies that sell these shopping carts. And one lady got sucked in to buying it, and she was spending $4,000 a month for a part-time person, just to operate it because it was too hard. So this will do 90% of what that cart will do, and you won't spend anything on having somebody operate it for you. So it's a massive bargain. That's why we like it and we recommend it to our students. That's kickstartcart.com. It'll be in the show notes. Another good thing about it is it'll do multiple websites. So I've probably got 70 different websites going through one account. Now it can only dump into one commercial checking account, and you can only have one logo. So I just keep my logo generic, Antion Associates, but I sell all kinds of stuff: tennis stuff, dog stuff, public speaking stuff, internet marketing stuff, mentoring, all these things. And it's all through one cart. I'll probably do a future episode all about shopping cart stuff. All right, let's get into common mistakes. And I've seen these mistakes even coming from expensive web design firms. And I've got to tell you, this really infuriates me when people charge you thousands of dollars. They don't know what they're doing. They're probably out-of-work graphic artists, and they just know you don't know any better. So they charge you a fortune. You have to wait forever, and you don't really know what to do with it, and it's not functional the way it should be. So I'm going to give you some things to check. If you have an existing website, you go check these things to see if your site is making these mistakes. If you're starting new, don't make these mistakes and don't allow some web designer to make them. And you won't really need a web designer if you do the WordPress thing with a theme and all that. All right. So here we go. First thing is poor usability. In other words, people just slop stuff on there and there's no rhyme or reason or logic to lead people through the site. And I know when I was first starting, there was a book out. I just love the title. It says, "Don't Make Me Think," was the title of the book. It might still be out there and it's probably still valid. Even though all the fancy stuff we can do now, it's still, people are busy. They're in a hurry. You want them to easily be able to click on stuff and get what they want. Next thing is form over function, and I call that too cool for school. So you can make these websites have all these fancy elements that aren't standard, that aren't what people are used to seeing, and so they have a difficulty using, again, it's back to usability, but it's because you're trying to be too cool. You're trying to make it all the fanciest stuff. And I got to tell you, I beat 3 other $1 million websites. Forbes, it was Inc. magazine had a contest, and my site was at the time would cost about $650. Nowadays it would be $100, but it beat out 3 other $1 million sites in Inc. magazine's Best of the Web because the panel of CEOs said, well, it was easy to get around and they could find what they wanted fast. That's all they care about. Unless you're doing a gaming thing where people are there because of that, you want it to be easy to get around. Say, you don't want them to have to wonder, how the heck do I get around this site? And if you want to make money, in most cases, the people with the money are a little older and not as tech savvy. So keep it simple. It can be professional, can be gorgeous, but if they can't use it, you're not going to make any money. All right, here's a nuts and bolts thing. Line width. And in case you can't hear that on your speakers, width, the width, or how wide your lines of text are. I mean, some sites, it's almost like a tennis match. Your head has to go back and forth all the way, and it's disconcerting. It's hard to read, and if it's hard to read, people will leave. Some study came out of Canada years ago. I don't know the name of it, but it said that people make a decision to stay at your website in 1/20th of a second. All right. And it just if it has that impression that it's too hard, people just go to the next one. There's actually formulas for how wide a line should be depending on the size of the font. So find those rules. Make sure you don't break them and don't have these wide lines that are too hard to read. Along with that, your font size should be commensurate with the audience age of your expected target market. If it's a young gaming market and they're all young kids with super sharp eyes, well, yeah, you can have a lot of stuff that you wouldn't do on a normal site for older people or older. I mean, starting at 40 years old, people have trouble. Their eyes start deteriorating, and even before that sometimes. So don't make the font size too small, and don't make it gigantic as if it was a child's site or something, unless you're catering to children. All right, no fancy fonts. Here's the problem with fancy fonts. If the person looking at your website on their computer doesn't have that fancy font, their browser reverts to its default font. So you have no idea what it's going to look like. So just use standard stuff, Verdana, Times, Swiss, Arial. There's lists of them on the internet, the standard fonts for browsers. Also, contrast. So people get fancy again, and you're trying to say, where do I click? And the button is almost the same color as the background. I mean, some people used to use that in the old days as tricks to stuff in more keywords for the search engines, but that went out 15 years ago. Nowadays, it's usually they just made a mistake. They got a theme that's super cool, but the contrast is poor. And contrast directly affects readability. And readability, if it's not readable, then people are going to leave in that 1/20th of a second. All right, what's the next thing here? Poor alignment. If you get a theme, most of your alignment problems will be taken care of. See, people slop stuff all over the place, and then, it just looks like a jigsaw puzzle that went through an earthquake. So you don't want that. Avoid italics on a screen. See, screens are made up of vertical and horizontal little dots called pixels. And as soon as you start cutting on an angle with a small font, they get all fuzzy, and it kind of ruins the professional look of your site. So avoid italics on a website. Now, you can use italics in graphics if they're big enough and they were created by somebody that knows what they're doing. Don't you try to do it. And if you have a really big font for some reason, like a pull quote is where some really great part of what you said, you pull it out and make it real big, like a quotation. Yeah, you can get away with italics there because they're really big, but usually italics you want to avoid. Now, you want to avoid underlining like the plague, because if you just underline something to emphasize it, underlining on the web means clickable. And so somebody goes to click on it and it doesn't go anywhere. They're all of a sudden thinking there's something wrong with your site, and you don't want them thinking that. So avoid underlining. I told you earlier on how you check if your site is responsive. You pull it up on your cell phone, and can you just scroll up and down to see everything? Or do you have to use your fingers to expand to be able to even read it? Well, that means it's not responsive. All right, the next thing is too many navigation buttons. I see some places with 20 navigation buttons. I try to force people when they're making a site to limit it to 5. And that includes about, home, and contact. All right. I mean, it really just forces them to think, all right, what needs to be combined? See, if there's too many choices, people vote no. That's straight from our copywriting and all this sales experience I have. You don't want too many choices. You want to lead people through where they're clicking and getting involved to stuff that they want to see. But if there's too many choices, no way. All right, let's take a little brief break for our sponsor, which is me. See, I turned the internet marketing training world on its head around the year 2000. People like me were charging $50,000 to $100,000 up front to teach what we know to clueless business people who refuse to learn it on their own. Now, I'm a small business advocate, and I knew many small businesses they could never afford that kind of upfront money. So I made all those gurus mad by charging a relatively small entry fee to my mentor program. that also got a percentage of profits that was capped. So you're not stuck with me forever. And so for me to get my big money, you have to make way bigger money. And the other thing people loved about it was they know that I'm not going to disappear because I won't get any more money. All right. And I went one step further that's never been done before. I have a big estate home and TV studio where my students, as part of their year-long program, come in and actually stay in the house for an immersion weekend. And that's just one of the unique features of the program. So check out the full details at greatinternetmarketingtraining.com. That's greatinternetmarketingtraining.com, and it'll also be in the show notes. All right, let's get back to the common mistakes. Keyword placement. Now, I reminded you to listen to episode 1 because that goes into all stuff about keywords. But the whole internet still works on keywords. Even if you're using pay per click, you have to know what keywords to bid on. And you might be missing a bunch that could bring you a lot of business. So do your keyword research. Listen to that in episode 1. But once you get your keywords, the mistakes that I see is either incorrect or non-existent use of the keywords. See, the most important place on earth on a web page is the title tag or title bar. That's clear at the top. Like if you see browser windows, you see text in the little tab. That's your title tag. It doesn't even look like it's part of the site, but it is part of the code of the site. And if that just says home page, well, that's... the search engine is going out and looking for keywords that somebody is searching for. And if yours says homepage, I mean, how many people sit down and say, you know what? I think I'd like to find a homepage today. I'll type in homepage to Google. No, they don't do that. They type in the stuff they're looking for. So you have to learn about keyword placement on your website. So the title tag's the most important. In a blog posting, the title of the blog posting is the most important to put keywords. Articles and the title of the articles, but you still have to spread them out other places. There's like 20 different things you can do with keywords on a website. So you have to learn about them. Next thing is people don't know where their site is hosted. They don't have the passwords to get into the site. This is not acceptable if you own a business. You can't just stick your head in the sand and think, oh, it's all going to be fine. My web guy or web woman will take care of it. No, you're the principal of this. And speaking of passwords, I can't tell you. People pay me all this money, and they're on a call with me, and it's 20 minutes goes by since the start of the call, and they can't find the passwords to get in what they wanted to show me. All right, so this is not acceptable. This is just a waste of time. So get yourself. On the PC, I use RoboForm, and on the Mac, 1Password it's called. Now, some security people say, oh, no, you don't want to do that, but it's no worse than anything you're doing online has a risk to it. So I don't put my most critical banking and financial keywords in it, but almost all this regular stuff I do all day long, if somebody hacked into one of my dumb accounts that's just some service online, chances are not much is going to come of it. And chances are they wouldn't do it in the first place. I mean, it's not like I'm AT&T or some major international household name that's where their prestige comes from hacking into, so you got to balance your security with usability, and you can't sit and talk to a guy like me for an hour and pay a lot of money and then 20 minutes you wasted just because you can't get your password. But anyway, you do have to have them for your site. Now, another mistake is your tech person is hosting your site in their basement, and you're paying them some ridiculous amount of money, starting at $30, $40, $50, $70 a month, and they say, well, we'll make the updates for you too. Well, that's a bunch of crap. Do not do that. That's ridiculous. That's one of the dumbest things people can do. Or I'll use the term ignorant in that it's unknowing. You didn't know any better. But that's ridiculous to do such a thing. That person with a thing in their basement doesn't have 10 days of battery backup, doesn't have flood protection. It's not buried in a bunker in case of hurricanes or all this other stuff that can happen. They don't have enormous offsite backups and all this stuff. See? So you're at risk. So don't do that. Now, hosting should have 24/7 tech support, that battery backup, but don't get sucked in by hosting services just telling you they have backups. I mean, this, to me, some things are just ludicrous. So a hosting service tells you they have a backup, and then they get hacked, and you still can't get a hold of your backup. All right, so that's ridiculous. And then the other thing that I learned the hard way is that you must keep a local backup or a separate backup of your site somewhere out of your hosting service. Because here's what happened to me. The hosting service, I don't know if they got hacked or just had equipment failure. And this was my first site ever. I didn't know any better. I thought, great, they have backups. And so, yeah, they have backups. It took them 10 days to find it out of the million websites they have and get it restored, where the equipment was fixed in a day or so, and I could have restored from my own backup within a day. But no, 10 days. And luckily, I wasn't making the kind of money I am now, because 10 days is a whole lot of money down the tube. So you must have a local backup. All right. Now, here's one that's just as dangerous financially to you. Unlicensed graphics and photos. See, some companies' business models is just to sue you. That's all they do, is sue people like you for copyright infringement. And you do not want to get a federal copyright infringement case against you. Guess how I know that? All right. Yeah, this was long before the internet. I had one from a nightclub for playing a song that we didn't have licensed. So you don't want to be in that thing. One person came to me, their web designer, they paid a company to create their website, get all the graphics and all that. The website owner got sued for $4,300 and had to pay it. $4,300. And another one came to me. It was $6,700 for one blog posting with an unlicensed picture. So don't do that. Be extremely careful. Buy and get licenses for any graphics. But here's the thing. There's kind of a backlash against stock photography with the obligatory white person, black person, and Asian people, and maybe some Indians now. So people can see that a mile away, that you're not in touch. You're just slapping up stuff that you think is PC. I'd rather see you make pictures of you working with somebody or whatever you do, all right, and real. Take them with your own camera if you want. Digital cameras. I had stuff when digital cameras came around. I had a beautiful picture of my product on a blue background that was flowing. It was an old t-shirt laid over a chair and the product on there. Prior to that, I was paying $400 a photo to go to a professional photographer for products. So I had the heck with that. All right, another thing with photos is people don't put captions under them. They put some photo that means something to them that means nothing to your visitors, and they don't put a caption under it to tell what's going on. See, people's eyes are drawn to the photos, and you want to use the caption to entice them and tell them something great, and that's copywriting basically, to get them to read your other stuff. See, so make sure you try to use captions under all your photos and make sure they make sense and not just some ethereal, tree in a meadow and, you've got some big meaning to that. It means nothing to them. Use of animations that went out years and years ago, like spinning world globes and all that. Don't do that. Poor copywriting. Now, we have a course on this. This is the #1 skill in my entire 40 plus years of formal business. And even since I was 10 years old, a kid selling stuff. You can check it out at copywriting901.com. This is the #1 skill in my entire business career that made me rich. And it's the fastest way to money. Plus, you can use it to write for other people that are too lazy and get paid a lot of money for that. So check that out at copywriting901.com. And that's not the copywriting for the Library of Congress. This is writing advertising copy. So it's COPYWRITING 901. And the last thing on this is to let programmers do custom programming that you or anyone else doesn't understand. Then you're stuck with them forever. if they leave town and it was crappy programming, which you wouldn't know any difference, then the next group that comes in has to start over because they can't figure out what was done. So most everything, I mean, I've been doing this since 1994, and I can't think of ever needing custom program for anything. We use off-the-shelf stuff and put it together. That way somebody knows how it was made. They know how to maintain it. Okay, well, there you go. Check the show notes at screwthecommute.com for a recap of all of this. And this is by no means a comprehensive list, but if you did everything that I talked about properly today, you're got a very good start on this. So check out my mentor program. It's the longest running, most successful, and most unique. And one thing I didn't tell you about, it also includes a scholarship to my licensed internet marketing school that you can either use yourself or gift to someone else. All right, check everything out at the show notes, screwthecommute.com. This is episode 004. This is 04. Or you can go directly to greatinternetmarketingtraining.com if you want to check out that mentor program. Now, coming up in episode 5, I'm going to interview one of my former students who was able to quit being a marriage and family therapist and become a full-time internet marketer. And in episode 6, another former student has taken off like a rocket and created his own online brand. All right, this is Tom Antion signing off from Screw the Commute. We'll see you in the next episode.